Yo, what's up?
Hey, what's up, man? I hear you, but I don't see you yet.
Hold on a second here.
You're good, man.
I don't know how the fuck.
I know. I barely.
Hold on. I think I got it here. Hold on.
Okay. There's a little video camera down by next to the little microphone.
Yeah,
I
I
think.
see it.
Yeah.
Come on, dude. Fucking allow Zoom tags. Yeah, okay, just do it. Why the fuck won't it? Let's see here. Yeah, I hit the camera. Then it says allow enable access. Yeah, allow fucking Zoom to do it. Let me try this. Meeting settings.
You're good, man. Take your time. I just fucking ran down here anyway, so you're good.
Yeah, just don't. Dude, like won't let me use my camera. Hold on. It's not that.
If you want to get out and then I come back in if you need to, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I might need. Let me just try one more thing. I'm trying to
settings.
Sure.
Cool. Because I'm half retarded myself, so I'm like, I don't even know how this shit works. I'm fucking doing it.
No worries at all, man.
How's the weather, man? Looks
it's
nice
all right.
out there.
I mean, yeah, it's not bad. It's sunny out. It's fucking still a little chilly. You know, we had a couple nice days. You know, spring's here, but it's not like full on. You know.
Yeah, it fucking tricked everybody there for a couple weeks. Like it was like last year in fucking in Michigan, it was like 75, like 79 degrees. It was great and shit. And
dude, this time of year is always the worst because we'll have this and then it'll be like snow in 2 days and then fucking who knows, dude. It's wild.
Yeah, I said you got to get out of April before you can fucking trust the weather anymore. You know.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's the worst.
I remember a few years ago, like it was like April, like 15th. It was like 70 degrees. Like 3 days later, we got like 13 inches of snow. Because I'm right on the you know where I'm at. So you know, like it's like the Great Lakes really fucks with the weather.
Yeah,
there.
You get that lake effect, like snow and all that bullshit. Yeah, I mean, we still, even us being by the coast, you know what I mean? Like it'll be like, I remember we had like a few years ago, like the April Fools like blizzard or something like that because we're by the ocean.
Yeah, man. So what's good? I appreciate you doing this. I just want to say Death Before Dishonor has always been, you know, one of my go-to bands whenever I fucking put on Spotify, you know, found you guys.
I appreciate that.
Like 04, 05, probably 04 for sure. Cause I remember seeing you guys back in 05, man. You guys came through with Ramallah and I think Shattered Realm.
Yeah, I think it was Ramallah, Shattered Realm. Maybe even like Suffocate Faster was on that tour or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that was that tour. Yeah. And because Jeff was playing in Ramallah at the time. I remember that. I think Ramona was actually booking us. She did that whole tour, so she had to have done the show in Detroit at that time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like even the dudes that I went to school with that were kind of into it. Like I was going to shows anywhere, anytime I could, just because I loved it. Trying to buy any record or tape or anything that was like involved in the music.
Fuck yeah. So 93, 94. How old were you? Were you just like a younger teenager?
I was a teenager. Yeah, I don't think I had my license yet. So I think like 16-ish, because like I found, you know, that first show in Boston, that was my first real show. And then there was a lot of 18 plus clubs in Boston. There was a Rat. I'd been to the Rat, so Blood for Blood there. And getting to Boston was easy. I grew up in this town called Randolph, which is in between Brockton and Boston. It's like 20 minutes south of Boston. I always say Brockton because Brockton had its own scene for a while. And even at that time. So Rhode Island's 45 minutes away from us. And there were a lot of shows going on in Rhode Island. So I would find dudes that like, I went to school with that had their license, and whether they were in a hardcore or metal, and we would go down to shows there. And I also like dropped out of school. So like there was an older dude with his license that graduated or something, could go to shows on like Tuesday and Wednesday nights. We'd go to this club Babyhead in Rhode Island that would have a lot of shows. Because they would play like that. There would be a show in Rhode Island at Babyhead that was all ages. But if that same show was in Boston, if it was at this club called Local 186, it was 18 plus. I probably could have got in, but I would tend to go to Rhode Island just because I knew it'd be no headache. So yeah, I was probably like 16-ish when I started going to like shows full on. And like I said, once I got into it, I was like roped. I would go to anything I could, anything that, you know, and back then you could get like, there were like magazines with club listings, or you would actually call the clubs to see who was playing that week and shit like that. And I would go to anything that I either knew about or like sounded like a hardcore band.
That's fucking sick. So what I try to think is you like grew up like sort of watching like Blood for Blood from like their very first days for the most part, right? Like
yeah. Like when I So what was the Hurt You demo? Maybe like 94. I forget what year it came out, but yeah, I remember the Hurt You demo came out because there used to also be this local college radio station on Sunday nights. They would play hardcore and like metal and punk, but it was called Nasty Habits. And I remember Blood for Blood did like a live set on there. And then I think before I even saw them, like I sent away like $5 and or like $10 and got like the Hurt You demo and like a t-shirt, you know what I mean? So, right. But yeah, Blood for Blood would play like all the time in Boston. And thinking back to those days, and this is like no knock on Blood for Blood, but you could go see Blood for Blood in front of 300 people or 20 people. I saw him at the Rat with like all local bands one time, and there just wasn't a lot of people. I mean, it's no different like now when Death Before Dishonor plays. Like sometimes, we'll have great shows in Boston, but you play enough, then it's 20 people come out because they see you all the time. But yeah. So when I was coming up, like the local bands were definitely like Blood for Blood. This band Brawl Park, that was very influential on me. I mean, they did some weekends and got out a little bit, but they never got as big as like Blood for Blood. But they did a lot of stuff around here, and they practiced out of Brockton. And I ended up working I worked at Domino's in Randolph, and the drummer of Brawl Park worked at Domino's in Holbrook, which is the next town over. I ended up meeting him, and I already knew who Brawl Park was, and then he invited me down to like their rehearsal studio in Brockton, and that's kind of how I started seeing how like bands operate before I started my own band.
Hell yeah! Fuck, was Death Before Dishonor your first band, or were you in other bands?
No, I was in. So yeah, in that time, I tried to start a band. Like I didn't know what I was doing, and I had a band called like One Man Stands. I think they kept on doing stuff after me. I think we recorded like one song. I don't know. The dude that like started that band passed away recently, but I was always looking for that first song that I did. It was horrible. But then I was in a band for a little while called Incision, and we did a little bit. We put out a demo, we put out a CD, we did like some East Coast stuff, and that was like 96 to 99.
Okay, yeah, way before me. So.
Yeah, and in that time this was I think the Rat had just shut down, and there was a lot of shows in a club in Brockton called 121, and that's where we rehearsed. That's where I met the guys in Brawl Park, and actually one of the dudes from Brawl Park, that was his side project. So yeah, the Spin Incision I did for a while, and then we did Incision till like 99. It was my first band. It was cool. It was what it was. And then when that ended, me and the drummer of Incision started Death Before Dishonor. Not like immediately, but he was the original drummer of Death Before Dishonor, and we started Death Before Dishonor in like 2000s. It was like the early 2000s. This year's like 21 years of the band. 20. I don't fucking know.
Nice, man.
But no, we started around 2000. The first release was 2001. So I always say like we really started in 2001. So this would be 20 years of the band.
20 fucking years of Death Before Dishonor. Shit, man.
Yeah, dude, time flies.
Yeah, well, I've been listening 16 of those years, so
there you go. Enough. I appreciate it.
Yeah, fuck, man. And I can't even count the times you've come to Detroit or like nearby cities, man. You've probably at least 15 times.
Yeah. I mean, there was a period we were just touring like crazy, but even before that, I mean, I feel like we played out there like, like 05, we really started touring all the time. But before that, like, I feel like we played with Dogs of War one time out there, maybe like 03 or 04. Like we would do like, even in the beginning days of Death Before Dishonor, we'd do a lot of weekends. And I remember like going to Chicago, Cleveland, stuff like that. We played this Arlington Heights Fest back in the day, and we would hit Detroit on the way through. So I feel like we've always, if it wasn't Detroit proper, we've always played like around Detroit for many years. And also like, I mean, we'll trickle into it, but Ramona booked us, and, she does a shitload of shows in Detroit. So we always have friends, and just, when you're coming from here going to the Midwest, you always roll through Detroit.
Yeah, you almost have to. Well, it's not like you have to pass through, but it's not that fucking far off, like the turnpike and shit. You run through Ohio.
You go north, like an hour from the turnpike or something in Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. It ain't shit, man.
That's absolutely.
Great. Cleveland and Toledo and fucking.
Chicago, Cleveland a bunch. Toledo. Even back in the day, I mean, I remember one of our first weekends in like 03, Frank from Ringworm, he's in Hatebreed now, and he just like heard our band and was like, it had to be like 03 because True Till Death was out. And I feel like that might have been when we played with Dogs of War for the first time. My years could be off, but we definitely played Detroit because Three Gun hooked us up with that show in Cleveland, and then we did Detroit, and then I feel like we did like an Arlington Heights or something like that. But yeah, we've been going out to Detroit for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Was Ramona like, was she like your booker, like for like all your tours or just when you'd come through here? Cause I know you guys have like there's a relationship there. Like,
Yeah. So it started like that tour you're talking about, 05, 06, whenever, it might have been later 05, might have been, I don't know. My years get fucked up. But
yeah.
when we did that first, we did that Ramallah, we did 2 US Ramallah tours. So when she did that tour, I think that's when I met her. My boy Mike Gayton, that played in Ramallah at the time, knew Ramona. And obviously Jeff G did. And he was like, yo, Ramona's going to book this tour. You guys want to do this tour? Yep. And we had met Ramona and we kind of all worked together on it. Ramona had a bunch of contacts because she had been booking in Detroit. And I know she used to book for Cold as Life. Like she had like a bunch of connections. We all worked together and we did that tour and it ended up being like really, really awesome. She did a great job. And then from there, yeah, we just she booked us for at least 10 years. She booked us for a while.
Yeah.
Like she was our actual booking agent aside from like just coming to Detroit. And like this was before she started booking like Trapped Under Ice and all this stuff. I mean, they weren't even bands yet. So yeah, we worked together. It was a great relationship. Like she was awesome to work with. And I think eventually she just got like into a different she always did her own thing, and then she got into a bigger agency, and then we were just kind of probably not touring as much of the time. But I mean, still to this day, I have a great relationship with Ramona. We actually, even before like pandemic, like in 2019, we did that Black Christmas she does there in Detroit.
Yeah, man, you guys just showed up. That was fucking awesome. Just random come out of your way. We weren't even touring, man.
No, we just drove out. We had
awesome.
Well, like you said, we used to play Detroit like, you know, so many times. And there, you know, I know we're kind of going all over the place, but there was a gap in Death for Dishonor between records. And we were still a band. We were still touring like Europe and stuff, but we weren't touring the States like crazy. And then when we dropped that new record, Ramona's like, yo, I'm doing the Black Christmas thing. And we're like, hell yeah. And it ended up being cool. I ended up having like crazy bronchitis. And we're
oh shit, I lost you.
It was a cool show. Detroit's always showed us love, whether it, you know, we good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, Detroit's always been good to us, man.
Yeah. I remember that show when you came through for the Black Christmas. You had to remind the kids like, "Yo, this is a hardcore band," because there's a lot of punk bands at that Black Christmas.
Yeah,
where like some shit might happen.
And it was cool though. You know, it was a good set. It was cool. Yeah, it was definitely like a mixed crowd, but like, yeah, it was cool. Detroit's always like, you know, and I see some older heads that I haven't seen in a while, and then there's like a lot of young weird kids because I know that. Like you said, I mean, Suicide Machines are headlining, so it's like a punk rock type thing. But yeah, it was a good show. It was good to get back to Detroit because it had been a while.
Yeah. Were you always into like in Detroit hardcore bands? Like I'm sure like Cold as Life and shit like that. But was there anything else that you listened to? Like what?
I mean,
coming up.
On the way to fucking cigarette.
You're good.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know. When I started going to shows in like the 90s, I was definitely into like heavier stuff. So I knew of like Cold as Life, and that Club 121 that I was telling you about, that was I actually got to see Cold as Life there. It's probably like 97, 98. That was the first time I saw them. And that was wild, dude. I had just seen like, you know, I had the records and stuff like that. And then like seeing those dudes roll through, like just a bunch of sketchy dudes getting out of the van, and they had like a bunch of dudes with them with like face tattoos. And I remember getting like, I wish I still had it. I had this dope Cold as Life pinstripe baseball jersey I got at that show. Yeah, I was always into them. I like Negative Approach. Definitely for me though, Cold as Life was like that Detroit band, especially at that time too. You know, like the older I get into like a little bit of different stuff. But I mean, Cold as Life was like, to me, like heavy, like the real deal. Like I was in a super heavy hardcore show. That was sick.
Yeah, it's scary shit, man. Yeah, I've never got to see that lineup with Jeff G. So I don't know, man. Maybe someday I'll get to see some sort of reincarnation of that. I'm fucking praying, man. You know,
I am too. It'd be good. You know, I mean, I have a very good relationship with Jeff. We did those Ramallah tours. I obviously didn't know him when he came through in the late 90s with Cold as Life. I met him briefly. I met him in Detroit after that. He's always been a great guy. And like, I'd be psyched to see him do something with Cold as Life now that he's out. And life seems to be good for him. But yeah, dude, it was sketchy. That club alone was sketchy. There was a lot of great shows there, but it was basically like, it was in Brockton. Brockton's like a really bad city. It's a suburb city of Boston, but it has a lot of crime. It's kind of grimy. And yeah, we had this right on Main Street. There would be this rehearsal place where there was a bunch of rooms, and there was a big room, and the dudes just started. They built a stage in there and started doing shows, and like all types of bands would come through in the late '90s. It was basically like carrying the torch for Boston, because at that time, the Rat had closed down. We have a venue called the Middle East that's been around for a while. There wasn't a lot of shows going on in Boston proper. Boston has like a great history of hardcore and punk rock, but it's also a college city. So, you know, for every time you have a venue that's great, like the Rat was a great venue, and now it's like, I think it's housing for college students. Like they tore it down, you know what I mean? So Boston kind of goes ups and downs with their venues. So at that time, Brockton was like really carrying the torch, and to see Cold as Life, like, so when you went into the venue, you went into a hallway, and there was a big room, and there's only one door in and one door out. The room probably held like 300 people. And it's like, I mean, I'm still younger at that point. There's like sketchy dudes. It was a wild show. There was a lot of wild shows at that place.
Yeah, fuck. So how was it like seeing like the like Dropkick Murphys? Like, did you see them too? Were they at like hardcore shows, or just was it like a separate scene?
Absolutely. No, I mean, one thing with Boston, a lot of the punk and hardcore, there were a lot of crossover. So you would go see Blood for Blood with the Bruisers, the Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah, like oi bands and shit. I'm sure they all sort of mix.
Yeah, a mix. And also like Dropkicks. I mean, Dropkicks were a DIY band. I mean, they're huge now, but they still are. I mean, they would play halls. Like you could go see them in a suburb at a hall with 100 people. Like I had seen them numerous times, and they would always, you know, they would play the Rat a bunch. They would always kind of play with hardcore bands, or if not, like, you know, if there was a show, you just went to a show. So you would see Dropkick Murphys with like Showcase Showdown, or, you know, just a bunch of like punk bands. But yeah, they were around. I don't feel like I saw, what's that bigger ska band that you mentioned? Oh, the Boston's. Like I saw the Boston's at bigger stuff. I didn't see them at that time. I don't know if they were like super active or they were just bigger at that point, but I remember seeing them at like a Headfest or some bigger stuff. But yeah, Dropkicks for sure. Bruises were around a bunch. You know, the Blood for Blood, Reason Enough eventually reached the sky. I mean, and there was a lot of local bands. There were a lot of like bands that really didn't make it out of Boston, or not a lot, but, and also we're close to like Connecticut. So, you know, you'd see Hatebreed up here. You'd see in their early days, you'd see Death Threat. You know, I remember when Death Threat put out that 98 demo and they played Brockton. It was insane.
Yeah, man.
You know, even New York, you know, New York's like 4 to 5 hours. Connecticut's like 2 hours, you know, so we're kind of like, we'd get a lot of different bands from Pennsylvania, you know, even my old band, we started playing in Philly and outside Lansdale with that band, Dysphoria from Pennsylvania. We had a really good relationship with them, but there was a lot of cool bands coming through.
Hell yeah. Like that's, you know, like being like where you are, you're in a great fucking location, because there's two bands from the area that I haven't seen yet. I hope to. Death Threat and Blood for Blood. Fucking never seen either of those. And they're staples. Like, am I even a hardcore kid? I've never seen that.
Well, it's all, you know, I mean, it depends when you start going to shows. And then even if you started going to shows earlier, I mean, there's times where like, you know, I remember when Blood for Blood like went on a hiatus. I mean, granted, whatever their status is now, but like even in their prime, they toured a whole bunch and then you take a break. I mean, you know, there's people that probably been in Death for Dishonor for like 10 years, and there's a span where we didn't go to certain cities, not for any reason. So it's not crazy that you don't see them unless you're able to travel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Fuck, man. Well, for sure, I was going to This Is Hardcore last year. I was gonna, and I was hoping at least one of them bands, you know, some sort of fucking recreation. And then, and Joe actually ended up telling me though on my podcast that, you know, he's like, yeah, they were gonna have, you know, Blood for Blood and Buddha was 50-50 fucking gonna be there. I was like, man, and the shit got canceled.
Yeah. Coronavirus, man, it's fucking everybody up.
Fucked everybody up. Speaking of, looks like a couple bands are starting to say fuck it. Look, you guys are going out next week.
Yeah, so we got a show in Rhode Island. I mean, unfortunately, like it's outdoor and it is like COVID compliant. Like they could probably fit 500 people out there, and it's going to be like 120 people because it's like a legit club and they don't want to lose their license and shit, which I totally understand. But yeah, so we're doing that show Friday with Madball in Providence, Rhode Island, which is good. Like, I don't know if it's going to be fucking wild, and you know, I'm just happy to get out there and do something. You know what I mean? Because it's like, fuck, man, and I'm going crazy. You know.
Look, man, I'll tell you how crazy it's making me. I'm in Detroit, right? I'm driving to fucking New York that Saturday.
I saw your post. Yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, that's good. That's a great show too. You know, that's in Times Square Park. That's that Saturday with Madball and Murphy's Law and Blood Clot.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it seems like things are slow. You know, it's not like business as usual, but there are shows popping up here and there, and it's a weird fucking time, man, because it's like, I mean, I'm a fucking hardcore kid, but like, this is the longest I've fucking gone without. I would never think in my lifetime like I would go a year and a half or whatever since like
no shit
seeing a show. You know what I mean? Let alone playing a show, but see a show. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, in the past, 7 years, I've gone a year just because life got busy as fuck. But
absolutely.
It's still because it's not there. It's like, motherfucker, now
it's really not. Life takes, you get busy in life. Right? You have other priorities. But now, like, it's not even your choice. Like, you can't. There ain't shit. You know what I mean? It gets taken away from you, and then it's like, damn, you take it for granted. Not you, but I'm just saying, like, even myself, like, I'd come home from tours and be like, miss this show. Now I'm like, fuck, man. You take that for granted.
Oh yeah, for sure. Everybody does. And I think, that could possibly be some sort of, bigger resurgence for when shit's back open. And a lot of people who haven't came out will.
I think so, man. Even that Rhode Island show, I mean, granted, there was only 120 tickets, but it sold out in like no time. Because I think people are like, regardless of your views or everything like that, no matter what, people are like stirred up. Plus, like, I mean, this is like our outlet, right? Like, hardcore punk rock. It always has been, always will be an outlet. Like, even if you stray away from shows a little bit, but it gives you that, like you said, like, you miss it and you're like, damn, I couldn't have it. And yeah, hopefully it gets people out when you can get out there and support the bands and support the shows so we can, I don't know, come back strong,
Yeah, man. Like, it sounds not cliche or cheesy. It just sounds like the truth. Like, and just come back like bigger and better than ever. Fucking shows packed like how they used to be.
Absolutely, man.
It seems like everybody's maybe a little more happier. A little less, conflicts. So it'd be
nice, man. No, you're right. Like, forget about the dumb bullshit. If we all love this music, like, go out, support bands, and like even support venues. I mean, like, even those we take for granted sometimes, and it's like, this people out of work. You see venues closing left and right. We already deal with that as it is, of like being hardcore and punk rock. You go through phases where like, oh, no more hardcore shows here, or this club's gone, because it's always like, some dive fucking bar, and it's like, well, now a lot of these places can barely survive. So even if it's just supporting the fucking club, that's why even this like Rhode Island show, like, granted, it's like, to me, it's kind of awkward if there is like restrictions, like as far as playing a hardcore show, but overall it's like, get out there, play the show. It helps like get people out, and it helps support the venue and the bands too,
Yeah. Just sort of, fucking like mental health of 120 fucking people.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Just some human contact, having a good time.
Just
normal
hanging out
4 hours, something.
Exactly. No, you're 100% right, man.
That's crazy. It's accepted, and that's why I'm going to fucking New York, man. I was like,
oh yeah,
this
dude.
will never happen again. Like it's possible for it to happen again. So it's just gonna be cool to be there.
Yeah, that'll be a dope show too. So yeah, definitely check that out for sure.
Yeah. You're not gonna follow out. You're just going back home.
I know I actually have a wedding to go to that night. So unfortunately, I can't go. But I know my bass player's going out there. This dude's heading out there for sure. But yeah, a very close friend of mine is getting married that Saturday. So unfortunately, other priorities. But at least I get the Friday show. So.
Yeah, for sure. But that's.
And I'm hopeful, like, as we're getting into the summer and stuff like that, and if you look around, you see a little more shows being announced here and there, some outdoor stuff. So hopefully, like, and you see some of these like bigger festivals announced, like, for later on this year, like in the fall and stuff. So hopefully, man, things kind of get back to normal. I know it's like easier said than done, but hopefully this leads into more stuff to happen. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. How is like the restrictions like in Massachusetts, like or even Boston area?
It was.
You guys got restaurants or shit like that?
Yeah. Boston's huge on the restaurants. It was tough for a while, but the last few months they've like, opened up quite a bit. I mean, you still got to like wear masks into them, but now I think the restaurants are actually open at like full capacity. You can't. It's not just wild style. Like you gotta wear a mask to your table. I think they only let you sit with like X amount of people, but it is definitely open up more and more. Like even the sporting teams are allowed to have like fans in the stand at like a certain percentage. And I think later this month, they're supposed to like start doing some live events at a percentage. You know what I mean? But it was pretty strict for a while, man. And we were locked down, I mean, everything was like takeout. The only thing was open were like supermarkets and, Walmart and shit like that.
It's so fucking weird. Still.
I mean, I will say even last summer, they did shut down like a lot of the streets in Boston. So some of these restaurants could have like outdoor seating, and they let you do that during the summer last year. I remember that. And then came in like, once you get in the fall and winter, it's fucking freezing out. So that was wrap. But yeah, it feels a little more like normal. We're not there yet, but it's definitely better. Like my wife works for Boston Public Schools, and they've been remote, and they go back. She goes back in 2 weeks, and kids are getting back into school. So yeah, we're slowly like getting there. Hopefully it stays the course.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was weird with my kids, because one's in 7th grade or 8th, the other one's in fucking 1st grade. So they went back in December. They went for like 2 weeks, and then they took them out for like 3 weeks. They're like, all right, well, we'll go back. And it was back and forth up until I think the beginning of March. And then it's been like full time. But now like it's weird, like, because it's still half the capacity at the schools. A lot of people that aren't sending their kids, because you have
right. People are nervous. Kids.
Which is fine, whatever. You got fucking people,
absolutely.
It's
everybody has a different thought. It's whatever you gotta do.
It's fucking a year later.
It's definitely weird though. It's weird time for I don't have kids, so I don't have to deal with that. But it's definitely weird for kids and just people in general, man. It's just it's wild. I mean, you got to think about it. We've never dealt with anything like this in our life, so I'm not like this like PMA, like, I don't know. I mean, I work when I'm home, I don't tour like I used to. So, and I've been working throughout this whole thing. So I kind of just, I don't know, try not to overthink it because it'll fucking drive me crazy. Like the fact that I can't get out there and play or go see a show. But, like I said, I feel better right now than I did a year ago. Cause a year ago I was like, dude, we're fucked. And now I'm like, I don't know, there's a light somewhere. I don't know how. I'm trying to be positive, but not overly positive because that's the way my luck goes. But hopefully we just get to a fucking better spot sooner than later,
Yeah, man. It seems like everybody is sort of just at the end of it, just watching, waiting
Absolutely.
for them to fucking give the green light to just, I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you, bro.
Do whatever the fuck you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Being like under control, that's not what I'm saying, but it's like,
no, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like no matter what, no matter how you look at it, like even if you mentally are like, oh, I'm going to do whatever I want. I mean, there's
I think I lost you. I have you now.
All right.
No, it's all good.
I'm also like sitting on my porch, so it might be a little bit better on anyways. But what I was saying was, I mean, you're not wrong as far as like, the word control, because you can't do certain things that you used to be able to do. You can't go to your favorite bar, you can't go to, your favorite restaurant or whatever. So it does suck. There is a control to it. Even if you try to like go kick it with your friends or whatever, there's certain things you can't do,
Yeah, it's fucking horse shit.
It's a weird feeling, man. It's a weird feeling. It's a weird time, all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And aside from however anybody else feels about it, and just everybody's in the same situation. You can't just lost you again. Well, yeah, no, it's all good. I didn't realize I can just click like pause recording and then
start back up.
Yeah, cool. It's like fucking nothing happened. I don't even know where we were. Oh yeah, talking about coronavirus and blah blah fucking blah. Done hearing about that shit.
I hear you, man. I hear that 100%.
But I don't know. So I don't know. We got to get a little bit of a little deeper into the Boston hardcore history, or at least what I know about. I'm talking about like, okay. I'm talking about FSU. You don't mind, right? Okay.
No,
I mean, I don't
whatever.
bash on Cruz. I don't have nothing. I've always envied them in a way, because I thought, like, from my perspective, what I seen was either like a brotherhood or a whole group of friends that are completely loyal and respect and honor each
Absolutely.
other. And I always thought that was a good thing. Like, how and when, like, did you make a decision? Like, how'd you know them guys, and how were you, like, influenced to become part of it?
They were just like a staple. They've always been a staple in Boston. So growing up with it, that was like, I mean, I look at it like this, like, you go to shows and then you build friends from going to shows, right? And you build like a camaraderie, and like some of those people come and go. I mean, it's kind of no different than that in a basic way. Like, I've been going to shows and those dudes have always been around, and you start hanging with those dudes and those are your friends. I mean, it's just, it's almost like an organic thing more than, um, you know,
Organized, yeah.
yeah, like it seems like this or that. It's just like, when you start kicking it with people, and it's not like just start, right? Like you go to shows, you don't know people, and then you start meeting people, and then you either do or don't build friendships with people, right? So that's really what it comes down to, like in the lame term of things. And those dudes, been going to shows in Boston since the 80s, like they're a staple, whether they're in bands or at shows or even like doing security or like, totally involved in stuff. So, there's always like the wild element of things that, I mean, there's good and bad that comes with everything, right? So it's like hardcore, right? There's positive things in hardcore, and then there's negative things, right? Sometimes fights happen at shows, which is counterproductive, right? You know what I mean? That shit sucks. And or like the inclusive, like that's why it's tough. Like, people have asked me questions about that, or just, or like, you had mentioned the text like Boston Beatdown and stuff like that. It's all a time and a place. And I don't mean like a brotherhood or something. I just mean like, growing up in Boston, it's kind of like a staple. So it's not like, oh man, it's not necessarily like, I want to be these dudes or this. Like, I don't know, you just become friends with people. Like I said, it's really organic here. And then, I mean, Boston does have like, it's always had this like violent element to it. And a lot of it, in my opinion, really didn't, even though stuff happened at shows. As I said before, it's a college city. So you would get a lot of weird people straggling into shows that kind of aren't there for the show, right? They just show up, they're idiots, they're trying to start a problem, and they don't care about the hardcore scene. And that's where I think some of the violent element, at least of my time in Boston, of things I've seen growing up or whatever at shows, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally. Because even a couple places I seen you guys in Detroit, that was like right on the border of like a campus,
Right.
of Wayne State. So sometimes it'd be just we'd be hanging out outside, or even whatever.
And you get some random
someone
weird,
just fucking pop off at the mouth.
and that's one thing with Boston. Boston's like, if you go, Boston's known for people being kind of assholes. You know what I mean? So if you're
for
like,
sure. I love it though. I fucking love the whole sentiment.
for sure,
Crazy Irish fucking fighters.
Yeah, but people kind of have an edge. So if you're just hanging out in Boston, I mean, someone could just be rude to you. So, and also there was a period of time too where a lot of the shows that were happening were like right by Fenway Park, right? Like there was a street called Lansdowne Street where Bill's Bar, Axis, and now it's like a House of Blues. But I mean, there'd be hardcore shows, right? So, people, you got the Fenway Park lets out a bunch of fucking drunk fucking people looking at a bunch of tattooed people talking shit, fights happen. So, like I said, when you asked me about like the Boston Beatdown, like a lot of that stuff, granted, some of the stuff is dumb shit that happened at shows, but a lot of that stuff was really, and at the time, I don't know if you remember, but there was like bum fights was a fucking cool thing. And it was a DVD with like fights, right? So we're hanging out on Lansdowne Street and there's fights all the time. So people are just videotaping craziness. And obviously with hardcore being very aggressive and stuff like that, like it ties into that. But that's what I mean. Like Boston always had like kind of this weird attitude, and I think it trickled a little bit, especially like in that period in the mid 2000s. You know what I mean? Things were just a little bit wild then, or early 2000s. It was probably like that in the early 80s. I wasn't there for that. You hear stories and stuff like that. I mean, Boston has an edge to it. I think people like mosh heavy or hard, or like, you know, the energy at a live show gets pretty wild. It's always been like that. But growing up here, it's like second nature. You know, you're from Detroit area. I'm sure there's peaks and valleys when Detroit, you're like, oh, these shows are wild as shit. You know what I mean? I've even seen some of them. And you know, Detroit has like their dudes that have been going to shows forever that are all close friends, probably because they came up together and they kick it with each other. And you're right, like there's an element of just like, you know, the cliche loyalty, brotherhood, all that stuff. But I mean, it's my friends, you know what I mean? So
it's not cliche to me though, man. Like
no, I know, but I'm just saying, like to the public, you know, like
for sure.
But for sure, in layman's terms, I mean, it's really just those are my friends, you know, from going to shows for years and being around, and like now kind of being the older dude, just going to shows, or being now I'm getting older, but going to shows for what, 25 years or something like that, you know, and I still go to shows, you know, we're founded in like hardcore, you know, just try to go to, granted not in the last year, but because coronavirus, but we try to go to shows and just hang out and just do our thing, you know?
Yeah, it's like so history behind that. Like I remember sometime, was it like really like, were you there for the fighting of like the Nazis and the skinheads and the racist people coming to shows? That a little bit before you?
Yeah, that was before me. Like luckily, like, you know, a credit to like older guys in the Boston scene. Like, I mean, there was that element. And I think a lot of scenes dealt with that in like the mid to late 80s. Yeah. I didn't start going to shows. You know, I would see a little bit here and there, you know what I mean? But really, like, and granted, I wasn't there for it. You know, you hear the legacy of things that have happened, but luckily for like the older generation of guys in Boston, going to shows, aside from just like my come to be friends, just like, you know, dudes that really cared about hardcore. I mean, they got rid of those assholes because there was a time and a place where, like, I don't know if it was accepted, but I mean, that's, you know, you hear stories about like the 80s and like those people just kind of gravitated to heavy music. So, you know, and then people didn't want to put up with their beliefs. So that definitely, like I said, I had heard of it being a huge problem in Boston at some point. And, you know, ever since I've been going to shows, like it would be,
it's totally
insane,
not accepted.
Insane to see somebody, like, it would blow your mind if you're like,
oh,
you'd be like, what?
Yeah. Like, where's the cameras? I mean, what the fuck?
So, I mean, you know, there's something to be said about like, you know, how Boston hardcore like handled things in the mid to late 80s. So, I mean, people know that's not accepted. And like I said, I mean, granted, we're not in the middle of nowhere and there's not a lot of sketchy dudes from the woods that fucking God knows what they believe, but like things are good, man. We don't really have to deal with that, luckily. So
yeah, no, not here at all, for sure. It'd be dealt with fucking quick.
Exactly.
You know, it's weird they had to like weed them out, man. Like it's weird. It's a weird thing.
I think that, you know, when I listen to other bands and people from that time, or just like older friends, it was just a different time, man. The world was weird, and heavy music just kind of like pulled everybody in, right? There's aggression in it. It's just a weird subculture. So people would venture out and think like, oh, this is cool, and have some crazy ass beliefs and be like, nah, dude, that shit's not welcome here. You know what I mean? Especially to think like a lot of founding bands in hardcore are like, you know, I think of like Agnostic Front, like Roger's an Immigrant, you know what I mean? And I know for them, they had to deal with a lot of that stuff in the 80s, you know what I mean? Playing like Texas and shit like that. But yeah, it's just a weird time in a I guess luckily we don't have to deal with that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I haven't seen that. You know, I'm sure I've seen a little bit of that. I know I have, like, you know, touring the world and playing some weird places. You come across some weirdos that, you know, we had to deal with that in our time, you know, because I don't really care what people believe. That's not my fucking business. But, you know, that type of shit at shows is just unacceptable.
Fuck yeah, it is. But well, even in the Boston Beatdown, fucking, you know, the videos that's mentioned, you know, like racism will get fucking, you will know that is not tolerated real fast.
And there's you know, I haven't seen that DVD in years, and I
love it. I mean, I watch it every couple months. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, I
watch bump fights every other month too. Who gives a fuck?
Right. It's definitely, and you know, I'll say this: like, for the time it came out, it was a weird time. You know, there's a lot of,
not to glorify it though, make that clear. It's just lots of shit going on. Yeah.
I will say this too, though. Like I'll say like a lot of the conversation in there, and there's a lot of older guys from Boston that speak on there.
Hell yeah.
I do think some of the message there is cool. Like, it is true. I just think that like some of like the quote unquote fighting was just like definitely for like, I'm not saying it wasn't happening too, but it was definitely for like extreme viewing pleasure. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we got all the wild shit. And I've been around the world and people be like, oh, Boston Beatdown. And obviously like, I'm not dogging it. I'm not like, yeah, everybody should beat everybody up a show. Like that's counterproductive. But it was a time and a place of what was going on in Boston. It was kind of wild. Like I said, like if you were hanging out on Lansdowne Street in those times and like a hardcore show would get out on a Monday night, because back in the day too, the shows would be over by like 9 o'clock so they could because once again, it's a college town. So they want to let like the dance club in. Right. Because that makes them money. The hardcore shows aren't making these clubs money. Right. So if there was a show at Bill's Bar on a Monday night, or forget a Monday night, say there was a show at Axis on a Thursday, they'd have it over by 9 o'clock and start club night at 10. So as hardcore kids are coming out, all these drunk kids, and I drink, I'm not knocking drunk kids, but like drunk frat kids that are waiting to get into a dance club, and boom, someone says something stupid, fight. You know what I mean? And even if there'd be times that wouldn't even be hardcore kids, you go down there on a Friday night, Lansdowne Street would be fight after fight. It'd be like amateur hour because
sure. I mean, even mentions in that video, it says you walk down Lansdowne Street, like you're going to get into a fight if you're a punk or hardcore kid.
And now it's a little different. Like they don't, Lansdowne Street's still there. It's just now. So there used to be a bunch of clubs, and obviously, this is what you get with backlash. I mean, they weren't when the Boston Beatdown came out, they really weren't doing shows there, and they were never like hardcore clubs, right? They were just clubs that existed, and occasionally they'd put on hardcore shows, right? The Rat used to be behind there, but the Rat had already been closed, so they weren't like loyal to hardcore. They just let us go in. If there was problems, they'd be like, all right, no more hardcore shows. So they stopped having hardcore shows there, and then all those clubs, Axis, Avalon, they were so you'd have like Bill's Bar that was like a few hundred capacity. Axis was a little bigger. That was the first place I saw Biohazard. And Avalon would be like the bigger club. So like, if Sick of It All or like even big bands like Korn and shit like the Slayer would play there. So that all got broken down, and now it's a House of Blues. So, I mean, I played the House of Blues once with Dropkick Murphys, like, because they're cool as shit. Asked us to play like 5 years ago, or it could have been a little longer. But like, there's no hardcore venues there anymore. So we don't hang out there. There's just no reason to, right? Like, you can't book a hardcore show at the House of Blues. So yeah, it was just a different time, and Boston was a little bit of a different place. I'm not saying like if you went down on Lansdowne Street right now, there wouldn't be a million fights after a Red Sox game. I just don't know, like, because there's no reason for us to be in that area because they don't do hardcore shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have one more thing about the video. See if you know the backstory behind this one. Right before the clip shows, it talks about like some people were like assholes or bullies or whatever. But what's up with that old dude who tried to grab the guitar and take it from somebody?
Dude, this is so. Right.
What band was that? I don't know what band was playing. Do you?
I think it was this band Drug Test from New Hampshire. I'm pretty sure. It was a while ago, but it was a whole to do. Well, also at that time, right? So a bunch of my friends and people involved in making that DVD, like they just had footage. I mean, there's so much footage that's not even in there. Sure. And it got to the point where we're like, all right, dude, we're just going to film all these like crazy fights out there. But anyways, people knew we were making, I say we, but I wasn't really involved. Like, my band's in it. I was interviewed, but I didn't make the damn thing. But anyways, the people that are making it, the word was out like amongst like the hardcore community, like, yo, if you have any fights, send them to us. Cause whatever, let's put out some cool fights. Like I said, this goes along with like the bum fights thing. And what I think happened, don't quote me, I wasn't there, but that wasn't even in Boston. That was in New Hampshire, which isn't far. But those dudes would come to Boston shows. I'm pretty sure it was just like a hall show. And I think it was like Drug Test or something like that. Band's playing. Crazy old guy walks in like, shut off your music, and grabs a guitar and fight ensues. But like I said, I wasn't there, and it wasn't like quote unquote our it was just friends of ours, but it was definitely a tape that was submitted. But I think the backstory is like, I mean, I played plenty of halls where like They're like, what? This is happening here? Like, no, shut you down. I just think some crazy drunk old guy grabbed the guitar and some young kid was like, fuck this, and hit him. And I don't know. There you go.
Yeah.
There's a part of Boston Beatdown for you.
Yeah, I mean, it even says like right before that clip, like I said, it says that sometimes shit happens for no reason, and we,
right,
you know.
yeah, I do. I vaguely remember that. Like I said, I haven't seen that DVD in a long time.
Yeah,
you know, I think when that came out too, the people that didn't understand it, like, was like, oh, these bands just like promote violence. And I get it. I mean, I see why you would think that, right? When you put out a bunch of fights from hardcore shows or outside hardcore shows with hardcore kids, you're definitely doing it so people will watch it, right? Who, you know, people watch bum fights. People watch, you know, what's that fucking website that everybody watches now where people just get knocked out, whatever the case is. But, you know, people gravitate to like War Star, you know what I mean? Like there's always an element of that. And I think that, you know, at that time, people were like, yo, we're going to put out our version of bum fights and we're going to tell a story in it. That's why I do like the language that's in there about like Boston. Cause I was going to say, I travel around the world and people be like, oh, Boston Beatdown, it's cool. And then they'd be like, oh, I'm going to do this and that. And I think there's like an element, if you pay attention, there's like stuff in it that's valuable and true. And then there's other element where people are like, yo, I'm just going to beat everybody up, where I'm like, yo, it's one thing to fight when you have to. It's another thing for like mindless violence, I guess. And I can understand though. So, you know, we kind of had to deal with like a backlash to that in a negative way. Just like the bigger the band got, it was harder to be like, people like, oh, you're on that Boston Beatdown, you're going to come here and just beat everybody up. It's like, no, I'm not. I got no reason to fight anybody. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't want to go around and destroy your clubs. Like I didn't even, you know, technically none of us really wanted fights to happen on that. It'd have been nice if we could have just done shows there forever, but weird place in Boston. That's why I always like, you know, I don't get, it's funny that you brought up, I mean, what year did that come out? That had to be like 03, 04?
03, I think. 03 or 04 for sure.
It was a long time ago, but like, you know, we've in 05, Death for Dishonor, like that's when we really kind of like, I say take off, but like where we really started touring. And like, you know, I remember being in Europe and people asking me, and that kind of like blew my mind that it had made it there. So, you know, I'll never dog that video or dog Boston or dog like anything. Like it was a part of history. There's definitely some shock to it. There's definitely whatever, but like, you know, and I haven't really had to talk about it a lot in a long time because, you know, now it's like that old, like a lot of people don't know about it. And, it was definitely a weird time because people were like, you know, plus the music at the time was like getting heavier, right? Hardcore had a lot of heavy bands. So, you know, it was interesting, but yeah, I definitely think that, it's definitely an interesting DVD. I mean,
it is. I mean, and there's lots of mixed opinions. You know them,
of course.
I know them. So, but you know, and even at that time, you know, I was like 17 when I seen it, and like I had that exact like aggression and energy. Like this fucking matches how I feel. You know, everything that was said in that video. You know, from everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you're right.
Well,
like
from you to Buddha to Shabo, you know, all those words really resonated with any hardcore kid at that time. You know,
absolutely.
Fights, maybe not, but just
no, like you said. But that's the thing. Like I think there's an element just being young and aggressive and being involved in aggressive music or being around aggressive people. Like fights happen, right? I'm not the guy that's like naive, you know. But you're right. Like it definitely resonated with people because I mean, it's no different than the music that comes with it, right? Like all that heavy aggression, or even if it's not heavy, like music speaks to you, right? And if you're aggressive, if you're 17 years old and you're pissed off at the fucking world, you got something to listen, you got a soundtrack, and then you had a video to follow your soundtrack. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, fuck yeah. No, man, good old days though. So when you started touring with Death Before Dishonor, how was it to like? Were you asked by like Rob to go with them in Ramallah and shit, or how was that tour put together, or was it like?
I think
I would, you know, like me, like you grew up around like the start of his band for the most part. So I look at it from like, if I was you, my mind would be fucking blown to be asked to go on tour with, you know, Ramallah.
Yeah, dude, it was definitely a cool thing because I mean, I remember that wasn't the first. I remember seeing so I knew Blood for Blood. I mean, I knew those guys. I was friends with those guys. Then he started doing Ramallah because I think at the time Blood for Blood was kind of like on a hiatus. I forget. But I remember the first time I saw Ramallah, they were on tour with Terror. They did like a handful of days, and I remember they played Boston. It was wild. And then I don't know how the tour came together. Maybe me and Rob talked. Rob wanted to do a full US tour. We had just done like we did a US tour with Agnostic Front in 05, and then we were coming back from that. We did a Europe and a US tour with Agnostic Front. That was actually the first time. No, not the first. We played Detroit on that tour. We should play Detroit maybe with Hate Inc. on that. I forget. Agnostic Front, Death for Dishonor, I think Full Blown Chaos. Anyways, so when we got back from that, we were talking just about doing a full US tour. So like, yeah, I don't know if it was Rob per se or maybe even Mike Gayton that was in the band, but we just talked and we were just like, yo, let's go out and do a tour and hit like, grab Shattered Realm, grab fucking Suffocate Faster. We knew Chris and them guys, and it was super organic. You know what I mean? It was just a bunch of us talking. Like Ramona booked it. Like she wasn't quote unquote our booking agency. Like it was super organic and a bunch of friends that just like wanted to go out on tour and just get out there.
Fuck yeah.
But yeah, I was psyched, man. It was just cool. It was cool too. Like, so we became really good friends with Agnostic Front on that tour in 05, but like to go out with like a whole lineup of your friends' bands, because we knew the dudes in Suffocate Faster, we knew the guys in Shattered Realm, we knew the guys in Ramallah. It was cool. It was a great tour. Like the shows were great, but and there's probably wild fucking stories. I don't know. This is so long ago, dude. I can't remember, but
yeah, those are my glory days.
It was a cool tour and a cool time. You know what I mean? It was a long tour too, man. I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks. And then even after that, we went to Europe with Ramallah. We did the tour there with them. That was wild too. Jeff was still in the band at the time. I think it was even after that European tour is where Ramallah kind of took a little hiatus.
Okay. Yeah, Rob already lived in Detroit. Didn't he live in Detroit for a minute when he was in Ramallah?
Yeah. So I know when we went to Europe together, I know Rob at that time was living in Detroit for sure, because he flew from Detroit. He wasn't in Boston at the time. I don't know how long he lived there, but he definitely lived there for a little bit. But yeah, that was a good time. That was 07. So he must have been living there like in 06, 07, something like that.
Yeah, it's darker times for him then too. His whole time in Detroit, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, Rob's always been somebody that's been fighting demons, but he seems to be doing good. I mean, Rob's always been a great dude and always looked out for us, and an amazing fucking songwriter, I guess you would call it. I mean, the dude writes fucking amazing music.
A star amongst the hardcore scene, man. There's something about him. He's 100% out there, honest with everything, and one of the best of songwriters, and
Absolutely.
on a guitar and lyrics. It's like,
yeah, dude, great singer, great writer, fucking yeah, dude. And like I said, those times too, those handful of tours, even the Europe one was kind of long. I mean, those were really cool times with fucking Ramallah, all them dudes that were in the band. It was rad.
Shit. Speaking of fucking tour, how did you end up from going to Russia?
Well, dude, I mean, we in 05 when Friends Family Forever came out.
You've been all over, man. Is there any?
Yeah, at this point I haven't been to. Been Australia twice. We went once with Madball. Once we headlined. I've been to Japan. I've been to like Indonesia. We've been to Thailand. We've been to Singapore. I haven't been to like Hong Kong or like China and stuff like that. I'd really like to. We've been all over South America, Central America, Mexico. Yeah, I mean, pretty much the only places I haven't been that I'd really like to go to is like, I'd like to go some more in that Southeast Asia. We never played the Philippines or anything like that. I wanted to, Malaysia. But yeah, so dude, we just toured a lot. 05, Friends Family Forever came out on Bridge 9 and Agnostic Front. Had a European tour. We did a lot of weekends up until that point. We were kind of just building the band. We flew to California once and did a week with the Hoods. What? Mikey Hoods booked the tour. They played a few of the shows, but it wasn't a tour with the Hoods. You know what I mean? Mikey came on the whole tour, but he hooked us up there. So that was only like aside from a week here and there. And then we just recorded Friends Family Forever that was coming out on Bridge 9. And that was like, we kind of felt like we were starting to be like a real band, like going from like young kids to like kind of learning what we're doing. And we always wanted to be a band and just get out there and tour. And so 05, Terror cancels off an Agnostic Front tour in Europe. Somebody in Europe hears Friends Family Forever before it's out. Oh no, Cro-Mag did, rest in peace. And he hit up Bridge 9 and was like, yo, does Death Before Dishonor want to do this tour? And we ended up going to Europe with Agnostic Front for 6 weeks. And then that led into a US tour with Agnostic Front. Without that, that would have been huge. So that really got us into Europe. And we kept on going back to Europe, touring the States. We were touring 200 to 250 days a year between 06 and 09. We were out there all the time, any tour. A lot of it was Europe, like because of that Agnostic Front tour. And we hooked up with a booking agent, MAD, that does Agnostic Front. And after that, we headlined Europe, and then we went back with Ramallah, and we constantly went back to Europe. Sometimes we go to Europe 2-3 times a year, and the kids in Europe are very like, they're super into it. You know, States were good too, but Europe was like something different, you know, and we just kept on touring and touring and touring. But yeah, when you get to that point in Europe, all of a sudden, you know, oh, we're going to fly you from Germany to do a couple shows in Russia. Cool. And then, you know, oh, you're going to go to the Ukraine. And I mean, we've done weird Eastern Europe stuff, you know, we played a lot of countries that are just weird. Very fortunate too. Because when you get to play in those places that don't, granted, a lot more bands go to Russia now, but when you play in those places that don't get a lot of bands, they appreciate it way more. So, you know, crazy fucking reactions from the crowd, just really cool interactions, just seeing really organic, like hardcore scene there. It's sick. Also, you're like in Russia, which is just wild, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I noticed like, I don't have a lot of people that like follow my podcast, but like my third, like the area that follows me most is in Europe, like Finland and
that's
Spain. Cool. I'm like, what the fuck? You know, it's not a lot, but there is an audience still cool. There. Yeah, I know Europe loves American hardcore and shit. They have their own scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of great bands from Europe. They've come a long way. And they've always had good bands, but like nowadays, European bands are fucking amazing. And I think one thing about Europe is I feel like they tend to, I don't know, like when I first started going to shows, you know, you read thanks lists and like, you know, try to learn the past or figure out stuff. In Europe, kids in Europe, they still have that. And I'm not knocking kids from the States because I'm just saying like they have that organic, like, oh, this old band, let me find, you know, you hear a new band and it trickles down to what band are they influenced by, and they'll kind of do their homework. You know what I mean? So
hell yeah.
It's not surprising that, you know, they'll be like, oh, you know, you've had some, you know, I'm sure you, between The Cold As Life and just the guests you get probably intrigue them from like bands they've heard of. So, you know, they're pretty loyal to their music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great, man, because, you know, they reach out, you know, say, you know, whatever about them. I'm like,
absolutely.
I'm like, thank you. It's fucking weird, but okay.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure you hear from other bands that have been, you know, like the OGs, like, you know, Agnostic Front, Madball, Sick of It All. Mm-hmm. All these bands, I mean, Europe is a big factor for them because, you know, the States come and go, right? Like, you know, you have peaks and boundaries. And in Europe, it's just the music there is just a little different. And that's why I always like, you know, I'm not dogging on kids from the US or anything like that. It's like in their culture, right? So their festivals are way bigger than our festivals. They're like 3 days long, and they're just such like a crossover there. And you're seeing it more now in the States, but like that's always how it's been. And they go out there for 3 days and they camp and they fucking hang out and just have a good time. But I also think like even from schools, like nowadays in our schools, you barely see music being quote unquote taught, where arts and sub arts and music and all that shit is still very important to their culture. So I think it translates into hardcore as well. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything like weird, like going into Russia, like a difference, like a customs like procedure or anything? Or is it just like anywhere else?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you think of Russia, you're like, that's a fucking weird place. So
yeah, for Russia, we've been to Russia. See, it's crazy. We've been to Russia like 3 or 4 times at this fucking point. But I remember the first time, like, so if you go to Europe, or when I say Europe, I mean Germany, all like the mainland countries, you basically just fly, you just need a passport. You fly in, they might ask you a couple questions. For Russia, you have to get a special visa, and it's like 7 pages that you got to fill out ahead of time, and then they give you like this special thing in your passport. So once you get that and you go to Russia, it's not weird, because like it's not like a huge thing at customs, because like they already did the background checks on you. So as long as you have that, you're good. If you don't have that, they don't even let you in. But it is super culture shock when you get in there. You know, it's a little more like old school. You know, you see the crazy hats on the fucking the officers there and shit like that. It's definitely like, whoa, shit, I'm in Russia. But like I said, I've been there a few times at this point, and it's like, I guess that culture shock goes away a little bit. It's definitely weird, but yeah, once there's a few different countries that you got to like fill out those visas ahead of time, and those are like the little more stricter countries. But usually they make sure you have that shit ahead of time, dude. Honestly, it's harder to get into fucking Canada than Russia. I spend more time at the fucking border going through shit than because Russia, you do all that paperwork ahead of time, so you're good to go.
Yeah, and as an American, you can smuggle anything into Canada, so it's
right. Well, but yeah, Russia's cool, man. We've been very fortunate to be around the world and see a lot of different hardcore scenes. Oh, I'm not sure that's a fucking thing. A lot of different hardcore scenes and different. When I say cultures, I mean cultures within hardcore. You know what I mean? It's coming from growing up here and just going to shows in Brockton or Boston and being able to see the world and see like how different people react to different things, whether you're in Spain or South America. It's definitely dope.
Yeah, that's got to be kind of interesting to go to like a Spanish speaking country somewhere in South America, because I know you guys are going to Colombia soon, right?
Yeah, we got a festival. It got postponed till September, but it looks like it's going to happen. We've been there a couple times, but yeah. So that's in Bogota.
Yeah, like a Spanish speaking country, and they all know the English speaking fucking hardcore lyrics. And I know a lot of other places know more English than other places, but it's still interesting.
Yeah, it seems like we here, like, I don't know, I barely remember, but in high school they'd be like, you can take French or Spanish, but like, when I travel around the world, a lot of these countries, like, they make you take English in school, so a lot of these kids grow up knowing the language. But like you said, I mean, it's mind-blowing to be in Bogota, Colombia, and everybody speaks Spanish, and yet they're singing lyrics to our song. You know what I mean? It's fucking amazing. Or you're in Poland and fucking everybody's, it's definitely a surreal feeling. That's one thing I get older. This band's been around for a while. I still love doing it. And there's something about that, like, by no means do we, and this isn't even fucking like saying it trendy, like Death for Dishonor's not making a shit ton of money, but there's something about going to, I said this when I was a kid, like, if I could go to a different state and kids could sing along, that'd be sick. And then I got to go to Philly and Connecticut. And then I was like, man, if I could tour Europe and then have people sing the lyrics, you know what I mean? It's these small goals, and you finally get there, and it's like, dude, I'm in fucking where? And these kids know the fucking words. Like, dude, this is a win. Like, no money can ever fucking, granted, money always helps, but I mean, there's a reason why I still do it. You know what I mean? It's the love for that, and the love for, like, whether it's playing a show in Boston or Detroit or playing a show in Berlin, Germany. I mean, all that stuff. I love it all, man. It's all cool.
That's fucking great. Like, so when you're going to Europe or you're getting invited to do these tours and everything, is like the upfront, like, investment, is it worth it? Are you breaking even, or are you spending money like the entire time to do it? Like, I don't know how it works. I just,
well, it all really depends. So like, so it all really depends. Most of the time when you're going to Europe, I mean, even in the beginning. So like when, for example, this is a very simple one. When we got asked to go to Europe with Agnostic Front, it was super last minute, and Agnostic Front does well. So they had a bus, and we would be on the bus, because these buses too, it's not like Agnostic Front Rockstar bus. It actually makes more sense because the buses in Europe are double deckers, right? They have 20 beds in it. So you can technically fit 3 bands on it. And that way, so, I mean, when you get a tour in Europe, you just hope like the costs cover the flights and hotels and transportation, right? Not each show is going to pay for it. You just add up the guarantee and you do the math kind of on what a van is to rent and the driver and whatever. So, for example, a smaller band like us gets asked to go to Europe with Agnostic Front. Now they're like, you have to buy your own tickets, but everything else is paid for, right? Because I'm on a bus, right? And they're feeding you every day. I don't need to get a hotel room. I don't have to worry about gas. So that's a no-brainer. So what do you got to do? You got to come up with a couple grand in plane tickets, right? I mean, I didn't have it. Bridge 9 funded. This is like 05. But you do the math, right? So if it's like, I think, for example, that time, tickets for 4 dudes to go to Europe was two grand a piece. But we're going to Europe. Once we're there, it costs us nothing. You sell merch every day, and boom, it's still a risk, right? But the risk is only recouping whatever your plane tickets were. And luckily, we didn't know what to expect. And luckily we did really well. We actually did recoup the plane ticket. So did I come home with a bunch of money? No, because as soon as I paid Bridgeline back for the plane tickets and paid off the merch, yeah, we made a couple bucks. But every tour is different, right? So if you're asked to be on a tour, they might give you like, hey, you guys get paid X amount a night and you get your plane tickets. And it's like, cool. If you're headlining a tour, then you assume all the responsibility based on whatever guarantees you're getting from each show. But basically your booking agent there kind of gives it to you like, all right, you got 19 shows and this is your guarantee. And here's a rough estimate on gas and van. And but it's always a risk, right? So you go there and say a fucking van breaks down and 3 shows get canceled. Well, 3 shows and no guarantees and no merch.
Oh, yeah.
That fucks you, right? Everything's always a risk. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the weird thing about touring, right? I mean, you can be like, yo, last time I went to Europe, we did so well. This time we're going to kill it. It could be a bust, man. You never know, right? It's always a risk. But yeah, you kind of like get an idea, and every tour is different based upon if you're a headline, even if you're booking your own tour, right? It's no different than having an agent, because you would hit up 10 clubs in Europe and be like, yo, DBD's coming over. What can you offer us? And they say, $500, cool. $500, cool. We'll feed you. And then you do the math and you go, all right, well, plane tickets with this, and that should cancel that out. You know, even when our agent books us to go over there, like we still got to pay for the plane tickets. It just comes out of the guarantee, unless a band, you know.
Hell yeah. No, man, I like that. Like, it's like, well, there's a lot more into it than just like, hey, we're going on tour. There's so much fucking to it, and it's something I never even think of. Like, I'm so excited for like the bands to come around, and then you know, when you hear the breakdown of how you go on tour, like maybe people will buy more fucking merch, help you guys out, because you ain't making money off music no more. You just can't sell CDs. That's
right.
So
and even like a band like our level
from your tour food and shit, probably not selling CDs.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, everything affects it, right? Because there's just not a lot of money to be had. Even with like the biggest of the bands, you know, they still struggle too.
Sure.
I mean, the bigger the band is, the more overhead there is. But yeah, there is a lot that goes into it that, like, you know, I mean, that's why bands that like tour constantly are like, you know, we used to tour like crazy, and I kind of had to step back for a little bit. I just had personal stuff going on. But I mean, you just always assume a risk, and the smaller the band is, the bigger the risk is, right? So like, you know, if you're getting 100, you know, say it's your first tour and you're getting $100 a night, but if your drives are 12 hours, I mean, that's your gas money, right? So then you're like, all right, cool. How do we eat? Now you hope you sell shit. But yeah, I mean, technically I've looked at every tour as like a risk, but you've got to take those risks, especially in this music. Cause it's like, you hardly ever get that offer that you're like, dude, this is so sick. We're going to be so comfortable. You're like, just fuck it. We're going to do it. And honestly, like this type of music, right? You always rely on your, like, quote unquote, your fans. So, you know, kids buy merch. That shit helps, man. Like, you know, and even that, like, I mean, you don't get all that money, right? You had to pay to get it printed, but you make do. But that's why, you know, it's the underground too. You know, that's why you live a little more dirty, and you fucking, sometimes you got to sleep in the van. Sometimes, you know, even to this day, like a lot of us, if we're on tour and we're getting say we're lucky to get a hotel room. And when I say hotel room, I mean like a Super 8, but we get 2 beds and we split the beds and someone sleeps on the floor. And that's what it is. Why we get, you know, even if we could afford that extra room, why are we going to do that? Like, cause then that's less money to go home with, if there is, you know, or the just in case money when your van loses its transmission in Reno, which has happened to us, and you're stuck there for 4 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fuck. But yeah, but you know, just how I said, you know, whether you break even or whatever, just that experience alone, to be fortunate enough to go do that. And that's what you're doing it for. I get that. That's not like money's not a question in this whole, whole conversation. It's just like, you know, just is the investment, you know, obviously it is. You've been there fucking, you know, 25 times probably. So
yeah. I mean, it's like, dude, you know, the longer a band is, you definitely have to, like, the longer you've been in a band, like, granted, I mean, that's why we've gone through members. I mean, a lot of people do, because people want to start families, have houses, do all this stuff. Like, you know, when you're going on tour and you're taking a risk, it's really hard. And some of the bigger bands luck out a little bit. But it's still a risk, because you're like, yo, if I can't pay my mortgage, like, I don't have kids, so I'm able to tour. Like I say original bass player, guitar player, Frankie, who's still a part of the band. He doesn't tour all the time. He barely tours. He plays at home, but he had a kid. He couldn't, to him going on the road, like, he's like, dude, I got to take this union job. And I like understand and totally respect that, because there is that insecurity of being on the road. And like you said, you're doing it because you love it. And if you have like and there's people that can do it with kids at home and make it work. I mean, our bass player has our new bass player has 2 kids. Granted, he has a plumbing business and he can put away money to go on tour. You know, we're in a different place, but it's really hard, man. There's like you said, there's so much risk, and it's like, but you do it because you love it. I mean, otherwise, why the fuck are you doing it, right?
Right.
And you would hope to just break even, but I don't know, dude. There's something about just going on the road and being like, fuck it, dude, we're going to have fun, and just like, not that it's always fun, but just play your music to different people across the world, man. That shit's rad, you know.
Fuck yeah, it's rad. It's, you know, to know you can go somewhere and someone's heard of your shit, and you know they get to see, everyone's fucking excited.
Absolutely. And all the friendships you make around the world with people that you would never have met in all these different cities or countries or whatever, you know.
Yeah, my fat ass starts thinking about like the food in different countries and shit, like what kind of, you know, schnitzel or fucking
dude,
pork chops
cool
in
too.
Germany or
absolutely, man.
Yeah, you been to Italy or no?
Yeah, we've been, dude. I don't think there's a country in Europe proper that we haven't been to. Yeah, we've been to Italy so many times, Spain so many times, Germany, Netherlands, Portugal, even down in like we've been to Serbia a bunch of times, Bulgaria.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Bulgaria,
dude.
yeah. What about like the Middle East? Anywhere ever there? Or is that just like illegal?
No, well, it's like a lot more of a risk to get there.
Okay.
Not a lot, and I've even met bands from like Israel and stuff like that. We were talking to somebody about getting somewhere close to there. It never worked out. I feel like Hatebreed's been to Israel. There's been a few bands, you know, that have done it, but you know, stuff like that. Some of it is just like travel restrictions, right? Like having an American passport, some of those countries are a little wild to get there. It's a huge risk, but I always love going to weird places and new places. So we were talking to some people over there, and then obviously it was actually right before the pandemic. So that kind of fucked everything up, but we weren't 100% go, and I forget exactly where it was going to be, but it was some Middle Eastern shows, and it was definitely going to be a risk, but it would have been cool. So hopefully we can revisit that at some point. Yeah, the closest I've been is like Turkey, and that's like right before you get into quote unquote like the Middle East or the Asian side, but that's about it.
Shit, man. Yeah, you know it sucks because you guys had just fucking put out that new album, right? Like just before this whole shit went down.
Absolutely.
And I don't even know what month you put it out, but it was 2019, right?
Yeah, it came out July 2019. Actually, the day it came out, we played.
Yeah, This Is Hardcore. Yeah,
This Is Hardcore. Yeah, that was like our quote unquote CD release. Like, luckily Joe put us on that. Yeah, so it came out July 2019. We had a little bit of time with it, so you know we did that. We went to Europe with Terror. Then you know what? I think that December.
Tour? Were you on that?
No, it wasn't Persistence Tour. It's just us and Terror did Terror had a headlining tour. It was Terror, us. Lions Law and Jesus Piece. That was in like November. Then after that is when we went to Detroit. You know, we did some shows, and then in February and early March we were in California with Madball and Section Hate, and that was right before the pandemic. And then boom, pandemic hits and fucking everything. Yeah, it had been 10 years since we put out a record. We finally put out a record, and a fucking pandemic hit. Go fucking figure.
It's just my life. Yeah,
but luckily, you know, I will say I am happy that we got it out before the pandemic actually hit. You know what I mean? Because it would have sucked even more. But whatever, man. Like, yeah, I'm psyched on that record. I think it came out great. I know it was a long time since we put out a record, but I'm psyched on it. And like when things get back to normal, we're just gonna push that record and try to get out there and fucking tour off of it.
Yeah, that was be my next question. Were you guys just sort of just going to work off that album still, or is there anything else in the works? I'm sure you guys been getting together at least. No.
Yeah, we have. We you know, I mean,
you have to get fucking and knock the dust off, get that throat back, huh?
Yeah. So you know, throughout the pandemic, you know, we have a rehearsal space. My guitarist lives like an hour away, so it's a little bit, or like an hour and a half, so it's a little more for him to get out here. Not that it's crazy, but yeah, we were getting here and there. We started writing some more stuff. We definitely like, you know, it sucks to like put out a record and play like, and mind you, so like I said, we hadn't put out a record in like 10 years for multiple reasons, but we were still a band, and we're finally at the point where the record's out. We've been kind of picking up touring a little more. We really wanted to just do a lot with this record, just try to go to a lot of places we haven't been to in years. And then this hit. So obviously when we come out of this, we're going to try to pick up where we left off. But with that said, we definitely like have been writing some stuff. So like maybe like bust out a 7-inch or something, just something newer, just because now it's been a couple of years. I don't know how soon, but yeah, we've been getting together every now and again, writing, just rehearsing. Plus with this show coming up, even more so. But yeah, we definitely plan on, whatever we are allowed to do. Like we were supposed to go to Europe last summer, it got postponed to this summer. Then it got postponed till next summer. So, and then as soon as we're allowed to, we will be back out there for sure. And hopefully, the 10 years that it took to put this record out won't happen again. That was just like, a multitude of reasons, nothing crazy. Just like my dad got sick, I got married, member changes, all these things. But, we definitely, whether it's this year or next year, it's like, we'll definitely be putting out more stuff and being way more active than we were in the last like 4 or 5 years before 2019. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great news. Something to look forward to for you and myself.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're like in a good place where we can tour and willing to take some opportunities. Plus, with that record that we're psyched on, we just want to push it and just whatever, man. Just go out and have a good time.
Nice. Yeah. All right, I got a silly question for you. If you could have one Boston band come back that's not together anymore, come back to do a show with or just go see, who would it be?
That's tough. Boston band.
Or I mean Massachusetts.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm just thinking in general, like to come back. I mean, it's tough because so many bands have come back. I mean, dude, I can go down a rabbit hole of obscure bands that no one. It'd be cool just because I was listening to them the other day, and it's I would say Reach the Sky. I really like Reach the Sky. They're more melodic, but
fuck yeah, man.
That's a band that I saw a bunch when I was younger, and I almost got into them more the older I got. And see, it's tough to say because they have played within. They did a reunion, like I think they played the last Bane show. Anyways, I don't know. Bands coming back. There's none that'll like. That I haven't been able to see.
They're like your friends, so shit.
Well, it's not even just that. I mean, I lucked out in a time and a place of music that I was into. Like I didn't grow up like listening to like SSD. I respect SSD and bands like that, but that wasn't like my shit. You know what I mean?
Wrecking Crew. You like Wrecking Crew?
Yeah, I like Wrecking Crew, but I also got to play a reunion show with Wrecking Crew. So like, and that was like the original lineup. Bridge and I put out a re-release of theirs, and we were lucky to play like a Wrecking Crew reunion. I don't know, 10 years ago. That was sick. Yeah. And as a kid, so also as a kid though, I got to see Wrecking Crew a few times. So I never like missed that I love Wrecking Crew. They're one of my favorite bands, I always kind of lucked out being from here. So when you say Boston bands, it's like, there's not that many, unless it's an obscure band that didn't come back or I didn't catch them at a certain point. You know what I mean? I'm a guy that like, I really respect stuff from like the 80s, like the found-in bands, like I said, like the SSDs or the Gangrenes. And I've even seen Gangrene, but that's not like, that's not my favorite. You know what I mean? So when you're like, if you could do anything, I never go back to these super old bands because I'm
like Toxic Narcotic.
Yeah, I've seen Toxic Narcotic. I actually, yeah, dude, I've seen Toxic Narcotic play with like the Unseen or something like that.
I love the Unseen though. Fucking
yeah.
I still got
Mark sings on one of our songs on the Better Ways to Die record. He's a good friend of mine. I see him all the time.
Yeah. One of my first punk shows ever was with two Boston bands. It was Dropkick and Avoid One Thing.
Okay,
but
cool.
The Casualties played with them too, man. So that was
Casualties are dope. Yep.
Yeah, that was my first besides like a Ted Nugent concert with my dad, that was like the first punk show I ever been to, man. I went by myself. I was fucking like 16. Like, holy shit.
Yeah,
man.
dude. I mean, that's why, like you said, even in the beginning, like Boston has like really, like I said, Mark Unseen sings on Our Glory Days from Better Ways to Die. Like that dude's like my actual friend. Like we hang out all the time.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's not a big city. Like it's a big city, but not a big city. People like Boston, New York. Boston's way smaller than New York. Boston, like everybody kind of knows each other and everybody kind of has to exist or not exist amongst the same small world and the same like handful of venues that do hardcore shows in Boston. So that's why and I think like the whole like working class, like that's just the type of city it is. I think it's very intertwined, but yeah, I mean, that's why it's tough. Like I don't know. I appreciate so many Boston bands. I don't know. That was a tough question because I can't really fucking think of a band.
Hey, I mean, you're like an OG though, so you've fucking seen it all. But
I mean, there's more I wish I could have saw. I'm sure I missed some bands. And like I said, there's a weird aspect of me coming in, and I appreciate older bands. I was fortunate to catch a lot of bands at a lot of times that, you know, even if I didn't realize I liked those bands, you know what I mean? That's why it was easier for me to say, like Reach the Sky. I liked Ian's old band, and then I don't know, I never really connected with Reach the Sky till like later in life. I'm like, damn, this band's fucking amazing. Like I wish I could just, they would play again and I could just appreciate it. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my Boston band. Well, I got two, but one I think is the most underrated and fucking not around the longest and should have been around a lot longer was Righteous Jams, man. Whatever happened to them? What the fuck?
So I mean, I was lucky enough to play with Righteous Jams. Righteous Jams was like, yeah, we did a bunch of shows with them. We actually played a fucking show with them in Belgium one time too. It was really cool because our friends. I think the singer, I forget why they broke up. I know the singer moved to New York. I want to say maybe for school or a job or something. Don't quote me. I can't remember. Right. But Joey C had like an opportunity to move to New York. I mean, everybody kind of in that band kind of just moved. Like Nathan moved to California to start working on movies. Like I don't know if that's why they broke up, but I know a lot of, you know, Paul that played in the band for a while. Yeah, dude, I think everybody just kind of went in different directions, but that was a dope band.
That was really one of my favorite fucking, like, and they're so different from like a lot of the Boston bands to me, like not as heavy, but still, you know, anybody can, you know, the lyrics and just a lot different sound. It's more like definitely like a Cro-Mags. I don't even know how to describe them.
No, I always consider them more of like a throwback to like those early like 80s style bands that like, but done really fucking well. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they definitely have a unique
like
sound.
Them, man. Like,
no, they have a unique sound, man. I always like seeing Righteous Jams. So, like I said, I mean, we were fortunate to, you know, we're playing shows locally at the time. They're playing shows locally. So, you know, and they were good friends of ours. But yeah, I think dudes just moved away for, you know, different reasons. And like I said, I don't know if the band broke up before that or, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, man, if that band ever happened again, I'd be so happy. But I don't know if it will. Like, they're probably just on different paths doing totally different things, unrelated. Yeah. But
I mean, I'll say this. So Nathan that played guitar, and I don't know who was a founding member. Like Joey C is like the singer, but Nathan does that show Mayans on FX. Like he's out in California, like doing movies, like in TV shows. He's the director. He took over for Kurt Sutter, but yeah, that's
was it Elgin in that show?
Elgin,
so
Nathan,
they're all related because of that. Is that how it's like a hookup from that?
No. I mean, he was from Boston. He moved out to California just because, you know, he had a lot to do with the Boston Beatdown too. He just always wanted to get in movies. And he played guitar in Righteous Jams, and then he moved out to California. He was also in Wrecking Crew at one point and 454 Big Block. So he moved out to California just to do movies, and somehow I don't know. I don't know his path to get into it, but he had made a couple independent movies, blah, blah, blah. And he ended up becoming a producer, writer type thing for Mayans. So he writes for that show.
Shout out. That's fucking sweet, man. You know?
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, if you look in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure shit like Mayans is probably taking precedence over like a Righteous Jams reunion or something. But it's pretty cool though. That was the guitar player of Righteous Jams though.
Right. It was weird, you know, like random people like me are still hoping for the day, and he's fucking just so moved on completely out of that world. I mean, as far as what you're saying,
I'm sure he's still connected with. He's definitely still, you know, he's doing a fucking a TV show on a network fucking television station.
That's so crazy, but
yeah, it's wild.
And also, and I don't know if this ever happened. Is since the flood, man, you talked to any of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? They did a reunion. They did like a benefit. A friend of theirs passed away, and they played the Middle East 3-4 years ago. So they did come back and play. And their bass. So we used to play all the time together. Their bass player joined Death for Dishonor for a while. Rob was in the band for many years, and that was the bass player since the flood. And then, yeah, they definitely broke up for a little bit, but they did a reunion type show, like I said, maybe 4 or 5 years at the Middle East, and I was there for that. That was cool.
That's fucking sweet. And
yeah, another band that like, you know, we just kind of like came up around the same time. So I used to play with them quite a bit. You know, they're good friends. Still good friends. I mean, I see their drummer, all good dudes. You know what I mean? Still see him around every now and again.
Yeah. What about a Colin of Arabia? One of my other favorite. I never seen them either. I only seen Colin in person. One time he was playing with you guys. You came, I think, with Madball. You guys came and played somewhere in the Detroit area. Did he play with you guys, right? Or am I mistaken?
He didn't. I know at one point. So there was a show in Detroit. It
was like Mount Clemens.
You know what? There was a show that I had to fly home for a family emergency. Colin was there. I was Colin there. Oh, you know what? Did COA play? No. I know Colin's been in Detroit a couple times with Death for Dishonor. One time I was not there. Frankie, my guitar player, bass player, dude that's been in the band forever that can't tour, he sang for me for an emergency. I know also Colin sang for Amala once or twice, at least once in Detroit. Like Rob didn't make it and Colin filled in. So I don't know if you saw him with Death Before Dishonor, but for some reason I am thinking that the tour when I flew home and Colin was there was like Death Before Dishonor and First Blood or something like that. But
yeah, I think Verse played that show, I believe. Verse was on that show, or
I don't see.
I don't know, man. You've done so many shows, so it's all
right.
It's a blur to you.
But I
this
do
is like
know a story of Colin for sure being in Detroit one time. But I mean, it could have been. I don't remember. But I also, you know, in
I think I lost you.
7.
Okay, there you are.
We did the U.S. tour for that. Am I good? You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, we good? All right, cool.
Yeah.
So in 08 or 07 or 08, we did a U.S. tour with Black My Heart, DVD, COA, and Fight Like Hell. That might have played Detroit. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. For some reason I thought I'd never seen them, but I remember Fight Like Hell. And you guys coming through, so for sure there's been some fucking so many.
And, but yeah, COA is still, I mean, they play every now and again. I mean, Colin's one of my best friends. I see him all the time.
Sure.
Yeah, he's a great front man. That band's always wild and fun to see. I mean, Colin's one of my favorite front men of all time, and one of my greatest friends. But yeah, they're a fun band to play with. Like I said, another band we were lucky enough to tour with. And, you know, when we did that was like when Count Me In came out, we did a headlining tour and we were able to bring all out, you know, we did Black My Heart was our good friends, COA and Fight Like Hell. That was a really cool tour and a cool time.
Fuck yeah. And I mean, when you got a tour like that, like a bunch of Boston bands, like it's like, that's a little intimidating. When you guys would come through, man. Like I was like, oh shit, here fucking comes the Boston bands coming to fuck shit up. No, that's how I felt though. Well, you already said, I could you never
understand how it's perceived. Absolutely, all the Boston bands, you're like, what the fuck am I about to walk into?
Yeah. And do I got this wrong? There's another weird thing you might not even remember, but at one of those shows, one of those tours, did you guys used to do a Clobberin' Time cover?
Yeah. We would just do the intro of Stick of It All's Clobberin' Time. We did it. We did that for years. It was fucking. I used to love doing it, especially like if a dumb fight happened, we would play Clobberin' Time. But we would also. Yeah, we love doing that shit. We haven't done that in years. I forgot about that. Yep, absolutely.
Because I heard it's Clobberin' Time. I was like, oh shit, what the fuck? That's one of the first time you guys came through, man. Everybody just went fucking crazy. And
yeah. I remember that.
You're like, yeah. It happens all the time.
I forgot about it. I forgot about Clobberin' Time. That's cool. That's a cool throwback. I forgot that we used to do that.
It's just things that like people in my age and my generation like take, with them. Like,
you remember that
cool
shit
they remember seeing, man. So
absolutely, that's super rad, dude.
Yeah, great. Hey, look, I mean, we've been doing about an hour and a half here now, but
cool.
I think we covered a lot, man. We fucking talked some shit, had a good time. What do you think? You got anything to say? If you can pass on something to the younger hardcore generation, what would it be? Some wise words.
Wise words, man. I don't know. Just love it, man. Love it. Fucking live it.
Show up, support.
Definitely show up, support, but start your band, start your scene, like all that stuff matters. It's not just older bands, not just younger bands, like everybody, man. Start your band, put on a show, I mean, the day and age of doing a zine, but like even you doing a podcast, all that shit, like, you know, get involved, man, and like care about it, you know. And I know people come and go, and like you said, like there's things in life that, you know, priorities come and go, but just love it, man. Enjoy it, man, and just have fucking fun with it, man. Look at the world, man. Who would have thought like for a year shit would be taken away for us? It's like, yo, don't take that shit for granted and just enjoy it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of why I started the whole thing, because not like going to shows and it kind of
Yeah,
fucking sucks. And I mean, it's not even, I can say I've like been a little bit selfish, like just to talk to people like you. I think it's fucking cool. And if somebody else is interested in the conversation, great. But
well, dude, I mean, I think about back in the day, right? So back in the day, you'd have to like, there'd be zines, and that's the farther and few between. But now, you can do interviews via podcast that everybody can hear. So I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I think it's cool getting involved. Like if you're doing a podcast, that's sick. If you can't do shows right now, so anything, man, is like awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was talking to this other guy from this old punk Detroit band. He was telling me that, like to keep the scene going, like somebody has to fucking do it. You can't just wait for
absolutely
somebody else
right,
to book a show every time. It's easy to call a venue or, whoever,
absolutely.
What does it cost to, rent the space for a few hours at a night? And
right.
I didn't realize like fuck we waiting for, man. Like this shit could be bigger if more people gave a fuck. And
yeah,
like,
it's tough, man. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
But whatever. When people grow up and shit like that, but like somebody like me, like I'm pretty stable now. If I can do something for somebody or for the scene, man, that's just,
well, dude. Even like I said,
even
even this podcast, man, you're just even having these conversations, and it gives people something to listen to. That's about hardcore, for an hour, 2 hours of their time. It's especially in a time when we don't have hardcore. You know what I mean? So it's definitely cool. For sure.
Great. Yeah. Well, once again, I appreciate you coming on, and I wish you all the best. I can't wait for this shit to be over with. I hope your show goes great next week. I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking forward, and hopefully, things get back to normal, somewhat normal, and we come through Detroit again soon. I miss Detroit. Detroit's always great.
Yeah, we'll for sure be there. We'll chill.
Awesome, my man. I appreciate the time, brother.
Yeah, man. All right, take it easy, man.
Later, bro.